Sreesha, welcome to Brown Game Strong.
Thank you for having me.
What brings you to London?
I think it's Shop Lune because Shop Lune turned 12 a few months ago, and I thought I had to come visit the place where I started making jewelry, and I feel like I need to make that sort of annual pilgrimage, but it's been like 4 years since I've come here. So it's just nice to come back to a place where it all got started, like just making jewelry and just seeing where I was mentally 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's important, just to stay grounded and to check in, check back. I do that quite a bit with the brand as it grows and grows.
So for those who don't know what Shop Lune is and who you are, tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up and what you do for a living.
Wow. So Shop Lune, I'm the founder, creative director, and jewelry designer at Shop Lune. I still design all of the collections. Shop Lune's a preteen, like a 12-year-old jewelry brand, but we do a lot more than make jewelry, even though jewelry is like our first form of expression in terms of what we create. I've lived in so many cities in India, but I grew up in Goa. I moved to London before going to Bombay to start working on Shop Lune full time. That's what I've been doing. We've opened our third store a few months ago, which is like a sort of extension of what we do at Lune. So the third store isn't a jewelry store. The first two stores are, but the third one is essentially a curated space for brands that are similar to what we do in India. It's like it's a place for South Asian brands and artists that make, that have like a unique voice, which is the opposite of what we've seen growing up in India, which is bridal wear and a lot of statement pieces, which is great and beautiful. But I feel like this place is like an extension of that sort of contemporary voice and perspective. So that's been keeping me busy. Yeah.
What I really like about your pieces are, I think they're very relatable to a fairly like millennial to Gen Z kind of mix of an audience. Like I would wear all of your stuff. Like I'm kind of wearing a lot of gold. I wear it all the time. And when I look at your brand, I think how interesting, because you kind of take the time to come out to the West and explore the different, I guess, jewelry brands here and like what people are doing here. When we met earlier, you were talking about how you find it very interesting that out in the West, it's considered luxury to hand make pieces, whereas in India, it's more like the norm. And what I find very interesting is in a wave of time and an age where particularly desis living in the West, such as myself, are celebrating this kind of dual identity of like, growing up in the West and being desi and like reclaiming their heritage and their culture and the pride for it. You come from a country where that is everywhere, You are in India, you are literally growing up in that culture. There isn't necessarily that similar experience of like being a minority. So how does, I guess, growing up in India and like being based there, but still having roots in the West like you do, how does that influence your jewelry?
I mean, that's an interesting question. And I think about that quite often. I mean, I am I'm South Indian. My roots are South Indian, but I grew up in Goa because my great grandfather moved to Goa. So I feel like I've always felt a little bit like an outsider in growing up in Goa. Like I didn't have other South Indian friends. It was mostly the locals or, expats, so it almost felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I felt like an outsider, but in a good way. I don't look at it like so I've always felt like I'm comfortable in any place. Like I could be anywhere and I'm just comfy. But I feel like with Goa, I think it's interesting because I feel like I grew up in a place where people made things by hand a lot in Goa. So things like crochet work or just like baking and things like that. We had to make these things by hand because otherwise we'd have to travel to Bombay to buy something or, to get something stitched. Flea markets were a major part of, I think, my childhood, because that they were the only places we used to go to, like, kind of find interesting things to wear, especially when I turned when in my teenage years. But I think Goa is kind of neutral in that sense. Like, it diffuses all of the, like, even being South Indian, like when I'd go visit my relatives in Pune or Bangalore or wherever, I feel like we used to meet for weddings, and that would be like a lot of gold and would be overwhelming for me. But in Goa, things were a little more subdued. Also, in terms of the way you dress, I feel because you're by the sea, or you, like, that's why I really enjoyed my childhood in Goa, because I feel like I did a lot of the nature things. Like, we would go get dirty on the beach or swim or, like, climb a tree. So that was like normal, which I don't see happening with the kids in Bombay, because you cannot, because it's like a proper concrete city. But I moved out at the right time. But I did a lot of observing. I did a lot of, like, just watching things, just being curious, just wondering why aren't there other South Indians around me? Why don't we speak Konkani at home? Or, I grew up speaking English at home, but I was just like, why aren't we going to church? Because Goa is Christian dominated, and I would kind of wonder why aren't we doing the same things as others? But we'd go visit my family had a farmhouse till about I was in the 10th grade, and we'd go there for the summers, and the rest, my friends wouldn't do that. So we'd go back and see our cousins, or, and everybody speak our mother tongue, but we couldn't speak the mother tongue. And we were looked at as outsiders in our farmhouse as well, like when we'd go back home to our relatives. So it kind of felt like, I think I'm glad that I grew up, like, my brother's an artist too. So we spent a lot of time making things, painting and doing things like that. Our parents weren't very strict in the sense that they didn't want us to do an engineering or whatever. They were just happy that we passed school.
Yeah.
They didn't really they just wanted us to be happy, essentially. And they were also very busy. So we had a lot of freedom and time at home to just explore. School would end at 1. And we didn't really, it wasn't as competitive growing up in Goa as I see. And after moving out of Goa, I realized that a lot of my friends had it quite competitive. Like, sometimes I think schools in other states would finish by 3 or 4 p.m. and then they would go to tuition classes.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. So I think that curiosity, I think you need that time to also kind of develop any creative expression. Like, I know as children, you're not thinking about those things, but it kind of informs what you turn into when you become an adult, especially if you're a creative. So that time was really important for me to do whatever I'm doing now. It kind of just, like, I feel it makes sense that, like, people aren't surprised when they hear me say that I'm running a brand that looks the way it does. Because especially my friends from Goa or my relatives, they're like, oh, okay, you've been doing this since you were a child.
Yeah.
Like, you were stitching dresses for your dolls, or putting things together, or even baking cakes in the similar aesthetics. I used to make candles for a while. A few of my friends in Goa think that I still make candles. They don't know that there's a brand as well. But when they look at all of it, they're not very surprised, especially the first half of my life in Goa. But then, of course, I moved out of Goa to study because I wanted to leave. It was just too slow. I wanted to explore the world or see other states. So that's when I decided to sort of do my graduation in Pune. And I left Goa when I was about 18. I just waited till I turned 18 and moved out.
Was it scary moving to a big city?
I mean, I always dreamt of moving to a big city, to be honest. I feel like I think it's that I moved out at the right time, and I didn't move to a very big city. I moved to Pune first. And that's what's interesting. Like, I kind of moved to Pune, and then I studied in Bangalore. I moved to Pune to study philosophy, which is also an interesting choice. I was confused. Philosophy helps me with a lot of my creative thinking abilities and my decision making right now with the business. And then I kind of organically just I used to write for pocket money to the local newspapers. And then I just decided to study journalism in Bangalore. I really didn't want to move to Bombay. Like, Bombay seemed like a very scary place for a Goan girl. And also, I didn't know anyone there. Literally no one.
Yeah.
But I didn't think moving to London was scary for some reason. So after Bangalore, I studied at the Times of India for a year and a half. I worked there for a year and a half, and then decided to move to London for a bit.
Why London?
It just a random choice, and I have a few friends here. So I thought that maybe, it wouldn't be that scary. I literally didn't know anyone in Bombay. So I never moved there. I was like, let me go see if I could study in London or work. Of course, finding a job in journalism in London 12 years ago was I was just like, at some point I was like, I need to go back because I'm not working or studying. But I picked up jewelry design while on my gap year. And I'm glad I made that trip to the UK,
Yeah.
But moving back to Bombay after London, I had an opportunity to work at a newspaper in Bombay.
Okay.
And for me, Bombay was more of a shock, I feel, than the UK, because it's so fast paced. But I feel like I found home in like the fashion industry. So I worked in the fashion industry and it felt familiar. And it felt like I was just in that bubble for the longest time, and I've been living in Bombay since.
I am so curious to understand that I've heard Bombay to be so scary, because I've heard that particularly in the creative industry, and if you're trying to make it there as either an artist or an entrepreneur in the creative space, it is a very cutthroat environment from what I hear. And it's not like a linear path. It's sort of a bit messy. Is that something that you resonated with as well when you moved there?
No, not really. Because I think, like I said, I feel like just kind of feeling like an outsider is very easy. It's a comfortable place. Especially with my journey and my journey with the brand. I think it has to do with the confidence that I have at the moment. Like, how confident are you to take it to X, Y, and Z level? Like, are you confident first?
Yeah.
I think that for me has been the learning. Am I confident enough to make this work? Because at the end of the day, it has to like also kind of pay your bills. So you don't kind of think about the industry or any industry or clique per se. Like, you just kind of like, you're just trying to pursue it and see what is your full-time job first. And for me, that move from journalism to starting my own business was actually so scary that I didn't think about anything. I just tried to make it work. Or I had to go back to working as a journalist, which I also loved. So I had to pick between two things that I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
I also knew that there was a lot more risk with, obviously, starting your own business is the scariest thing I've ever, like, especially when you're working full time. It looks extremely scary, and it actually is in the first few years until it works. And what does that look like? Like, what does making a business work also looks like? It really depends on your goals in life and what your financial goals and your creative goals, and can you express yourself authentically, right? So for me, I think Bombay, in fact, was a good embrace. And because I came to the UK and I used to assist this designer for a bit, uh, for I think a month, I assisted a designer. And I remember she used to make clothing in on the weekends, and she used to work as a bartender in the day.
Okay.
So I decided to imitate that when I went back home. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I love in the day and I'm going to do what I love at night. Like I'm going to write and work in journalism in the day and I'm going to make jewelry at night on the weekends. You know, I was just like, at least I'm doing something that I enjoy, like through the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of looked at it as a very good thing, you know. And yeah, I mean, so for me, Bombay, and I made friends. And I think through the way you kind of make friends and people can sense passion, I feel. Like, you know, when you meet someone who's like a proper, like a hyper, like I think people can sense when you're hyper creative and you attract those people to you. So I've made those kind of friends in Bombay who's just like sense that, okay, Sreesha's up to, okay, she's making a necklace collection. Let's go and have a look at what it looks like. And people actually ask me because I'm constantly talking about the brand. I have to actually stop myself sometimes.
Oh my gosh, please don't stop talking about your brand, because when I look you up on social media, I can see all these like really cool, like, you know, edgy kind of shots of you, and your brand is just so like on point in terms of the branding and just how like you storytell through that. And I think that's really cool. But actually who you are and like what it's felt like growing Shop Lune for you, still to me, like in the research I was doing, felt like a real mystery because it can't have been easy. And I always think about this as somebody who obviously runs my own thing as well on the side of my full-time job. I know what it feels like to have ups and downs and like have months where you're just like, what am I doing? You know, is this even working? Am I even good at this? Yeah. You are good at what you do. And I want to know, I guess, what are those moments where you felt like, you know what, this is going to work? And what are those moments where you felt like, God, I should just quit and go back to journalism? Like, do you alternate between the two?
I had those questions till 2016. I started the brand in 2012 as a hobby. And the first 4 years, I was just like, let it just always stay a hobby. I'd never wanted to have a full business full time because I never thought it would work. And also the comfort of a job. I wanted to become an editor. And I think when I quit my full-time job and I decided to give the business a go in the first year and a half, I think that was the toughest year for me because firstly it's lonely.
Yeah.
Because you're doing everything by yourself. And then you're trying to figure out things that I mean, people actually don't talk about these things, but it's actually the most important things, like how do you code a website? How do you find your logistics partner? Who should be your first hire? You know? And how do you find trustworthy manufacturers? Who do you train first? Because you have limited time. And everything feels very overwhelming because you want to do everything all at once. Like you want to do everything simultaneously. And I feel like the first, and sometimes I would just shut down. I just wouldn't do anything. There'd be days where I would just be like, I don't know what to do, you know? And of course, my mom would be like, if things don't work out, come back to Goa. And for me, that was never an option. Like, I felt like going back home I was about 26 or 27 by then. I felt like that seemed to me like a failure, but I think I was so hard on myself because why not? You know, at least I have the privilege of that, you know, where my mom didn't judge me or wasn't like hard on me or whatever. I'm quite grateful for that. But for me, it was a big failure because I grew up, I was always working in some ways or the other. So just like kind of failing at something and going back home just felt like a very big deal at that point.
Yeah.
And also by the age of 26, 27, a lot of people are like mid-level managers, or, you've reached a point in your career where you're at least a senior at something or a mid-manager at something. And I quit when I was just a junior copywriter. So for me to go back and start again from scratch, which I felt then, I just thought that I had to make this work. And I tried everything. Of course, there were days where I would shut down because of the pressure I would put on myself.
Yeah.
But I literally tried everything. Like I would try selling my pieces on third-party portals. Like, you have there's a version, there's a Nykaa in India. And then you have your Amazons and you have like all of these other places. I did all of that. I did pop-ups on my own. I tried everything. But I think there was this one point where I was just like, let me just focus on my website and my customer. Because I felt like my customers never gave up for some reason. Like I had customers who would like message me and be like, can you make this for me? I need this on Sunday. And I would make everything by hand. So for me, I think I actually started from scratch, which is like, I feel like now that I look around, I feel some of the entrepreneurs today are so smart in that sense because they've gone to design school. I did a tiny summer course at Central St. Martin's, but I didn't really study processes and systems and, all of those things. So I feel like I grew, Lune has grown very slowly. And I've made a million mistakes. But I feel like I'm so glad I made all of those mistakes early on. Like the first year and a half was just like a series of failures. And thoughts, like second guesses. Like I would always think about going back to work. I, in fact, even tried to apply for a job in 2016, thinking that it won't work. But I think I was just like, at some point, I was just like, let me go at it. Let me try just building my community. Let me attract my audience. Let me just like cut out the noise. I stopped doing pop-ups. I stopped doing the third party selling things, shop in shops. I sell my jewelry at a lot of stores. I shut all of that and I just focused on my work, like just me, Instagram and my website. And it actually just, I started to see results pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I remember my mom was like, you need to hire people or you're going to be burnt out. You want to do this for the long run. And she was visiting and I had about 40 orders to fulfill. And she was like, what are you doing? Are you still making everything by hand? And I was like, yeah, that's how.
One by one, you were making
everything by hand, yeah, at home. And because she's been an entrepreneur all her life, but I think I wouldn't give her much credit because I'd just be like, you don't know what I'm doing. I'm just creating something really special.
Yeah.
So
You
special
don't
that
get me.
you don't, something so special that you wouldn't get me. But I think if you're an entrepreneur, you can just see a good business from a distance. So she kind of like at least potential for a good business from a distance. And I think she saw that and she was like, I want to help you. You're moving the operations bit to Goa. And her staff at that time helped me a little bit with the shipping of orders and creating systems and creating inventory. So my mom joined Shop Lune 5 years ago. And for me, that was just like a pat on my back because she's been an entrepreneur all her life and very successful single mother, raised 2 kids, given us art education in India and didn't really expect much from us in return because she kind of thought we'd do something in the arts. But she wouldn't waste her time working on something that she's a numbers person. Like, so she was like, I want to do this with you. I think this would be really exciting for us as a family, and we just work together as well, which could also be a nightmare. But it's not. It's nice for us to kind of like work closely. And yeah, it kind of like took off from that year, from 2017, 2018. We've seen like growth year on year. And I think that's because I just stopped listening to everything else and just started focusing on my voice. And by that, it may just be as simple as photographing something in the style that I like, putting it out there, and or giving jewelry to a couple of my friends and who have great style, or who are just like, my friends have been my best sort of influencers, I feel. And word of mouth, we still have like 80% of our customers are return customers who've been buying from us since I started. So that matters. And just kind of like going with what you feel will work for the brand.
So when you said you were on third-party platforms back in the day, was there anything fundamental, maybe any learnings that you took that helped you in this new phase of the business?
Yeah, definitely. Like listing things, Excel sheets. When you're selling on third-party portals, they expect you to go on discounts because they have discounts all the time. There's a return. Customers return things whenever, like if they don't like something, they return it. But with jewelry, and I think in the category of jewelry and even like swimwear and lingerie, you can't, because it's unhygienic. But I feel like with what I learned was that I could create my own rules because I run my business and I'm not going to look at what others are doing. Like for instance, discounts is something that we don't do. We don't even have the 10% discount on your first purchase. We just cannot take on that, and that's something that we have 2 discounts every year, and that's almost like a gratitude sort of sale. And it's actually it's very little. It's just 15% because we work directly with artisan families, and we cannot like take on that to give people discounts. But people understand that everything's handcrafted. It's not mass manufactured. It's not made in another country. It's made in our own country, and we're like paying like proper wages. We are also trying to like expand identify a cluster, create a collection with the cluster, and also check if this model works. It seemed like a newish model, like to just identify families, work on a collection with them, and grow from there. I feel businesses doesn't have to be straightforward. It can be as creative as possible, and you can involve as many people as possible. You can also give work. You have the power to also give work. Like for instance, our little bags, our organic bags, are made by an NGO in India. I could easily get it done from Alibaba.com. But no, I have the power to go and pick an NGO, and it's probably the same amount. And there's a human being that I'm talking to. I can see the work that they're doing. So I feel we have the power to make these little choices as a smaller independent business. And I enjoy that the most. I don't take that for granted at all. With third-party portals, you don't even know the customer who's purchasing from you. And that's essentially not what the brand is, Yeah. It's just very human from its core. So yeah, I mean, I definitely learned that systems are very important. Putting processes and systems are very important. And that's something that we're still learning.
I feel when I look at your website, I see that sustainability is such a core value that you have, and obviously climate change and all of that as well. But I think what you mentioned about making sure that people have jobs, making sure that you're looking locally and supporting the economy locally, where you can feature other small brands or businesses doing creating really good products that you can incorporate and collaborate with. I see you doing that a lot and very intentionally. And I think that comes through in your brand, because I think when we were speaking earlier as well, you were talking about how like scalability was not necessarily like the ultimate goal in life. And you have demonstrated that slow growth is still success. Like if you are consistent enough in something and you're trying things and you're having fun with it, you can be successful. You don't have to follow what everyone else is doing. I think that's very inspiring in itself, personally, because I think some of the things I personally struggle with myself running my own business, I guess with this, is it can be hard not to look around, and it can be hard to stay in your own lane and really trust that what you're doing is correct. But I think data and evidence gives you that confidence over time. Like you said, it helps you believe in yourself. Obviously, your craft you believe in already, but I think you've done enough, you've learned enough over time to kind of appreciate that you know what you're talking about, and I think other people can see that. I don't really have a question on that. I think it was just an observation, really, that it's something that I resonate with so much over time. I've like learned to appreciate is just intention and finding ways to help, like for a wider cause. And it doesn't have to be like a charity, but it can just be helping in little ways where you can, rather than going to Alibaba or not knowing the customer. My next question to you is, okay, this is another observation, I guess, through the brand, is you've done a lot of collaborative work. So I saw that you've done a little project with Subco, and you've created some really like dainty pieces with them. So where did those kind of ideas generate from? This idea of like working with other brands that aren't jewelry brands, and creating a collaborative product that people will want.
I think most of my work, or the way I work, comes from my background in journalism a little bit, where you kind of like work on a story and you're not looking at other stories to inform the story that you're working on. And I kind of worked on a lot of, and because I work for a newspaper and fashion, each story, like as a journalist, you're supposed to break a story, right? For that, the story has to be really unique. And I feel Lune has been this one ongoing story for me. It doesn't make sense for me to look at other places. Like for me, I create my own thing. But of course, like data and finances informs a lot of, and gives you the confidence to then take risks. And that's why I feel like Shop Lune, apart from the jewelry that we do and love and all of that, we enjoy collaborating. There has to be, for me, that I couldn't just do this with my team. We are just such an enthusiastic little team that we don't just speak to customers, we enjoy talking to other creatives. And my brother is a fine artist, so I collaborate with him a lot. Subco, they basically have a cafe very close to our store. So we know the people that work there. So it just seemed like a natural transition. And these are friends that we collaborate, like friends we've made through the brand. And I feel like we've attracted a lot of these people over the course of time. I feel like that's the thing. I feel like if you're starting something and you have this creative vision, it attracts the right people. It also could be brands and artists and people from all walks of life. So I feel like sometimes when a collaboration has to happen, it just happens. So it's not a forced section. It's not like we have a thing where I say we have to have 5 collaborations this year. It's an organic space, but it's an important space. So that's important. Our customers get very excited. They're always looking to read a new story on the blog, or if there's a collaboration, they're the most excited. And if there's an event or a launch, that's something that's not very, it's sort of inclusive space. So we invite everybody. It's not just fashion editors and stylists, but everyone's welcome. And our spaces are a lot like that. It's very sort of cozy. Everyone's welcome. And most of our customers are from creative industries. So that helps as well, So it's pretty much that. Like collaboration is a big part. Collaboration and community is a big part of what we do at Lune. And that wasn't like a marketing choice. It just happened organically.
I was going to say, I almost feel like throughout this whole conversation, you've definitely been quite humble, because some of the names that you've worked with, I mean, I looked on your Instagram and I was just like counting names of people I could recognize. And I was like, I mean, you've worked, you've had a lot of celebrities that have been promoting your brand as well. To name a few, you've had Alia Bhatt, you've had Karishma and Kareena Kapoor, you've had Katrina Kaif, basically everyone I could think of, Ananya Pandey more recently. And I was just thinking, is there a strategy behind this? And how does that actually work? Like getting the reach that your brand has, yet staying so community focused and so grounded. Like you've managed to kind of strike a balance, but also how have you got that reach? Was it intentional?
No, it wasn't. I think it was just we've tried to strategize and do things a little with, we want to be more organized now, but I don't think being too strategic has ever worked for Loon. Like, I feel there has to be that sort of little space for magic. And I want to keep going back to that. Because every time I try to be very organized or strategic with things, it just doesn't work out, or everyone's bored, including me.
Yeah.
So if I know what the outcome's going to look like, it just bores me. Like, I might as well just like not do it, right? So it has to be exciting for everyone. And with the celebrities that have bought from us, I think it's the way we see. The thing is, when I started Loon, I didn't start Loon with a business plan. It was organic. What I could fall back on was the way I expressed my, how did I like visually style my pieces? How are my hoops styled? Or what was the collection note like? How did I tell my story for each collection? And I think that resonates with everyone, like famous or non-famous people. And I feel like for instance, Alia Bhatt's been wearing our hoops for I think 4 to 5 years now. I know big brands pay celebrities for that, just to be seen in their pieces for like some time, which is like, someone recently told me that, like, people, like a big brand would pay a celebrity in a specific sneaker maybe for a few years, but she's just done that on her own, and it seems like she really likes your hoops. And I'm just like, yeah, I hope so. Yeah. But she's been wearing our hoops for 4 years, and I still see her wearing them, and we are all so happy whenever she wears them. The people who've made the hoops, who make the collection, the family, they're just the most excited when they see her wearing the hoops. And she's purchased them from us. So she's a customer. Her sister is a customer. All of the celebrities, mostly, majority of them are customers. We don't have a publicist. We've not paid for influencer marketing or celebrity placements or press placements. Never did. I mean, we never had the budget to, so we never thought about it. And even if we, I think, did have a budget, I would be like, let's use it to make something, like create a new event, or pay a photographer to photograph something in a more interesting way. I don't think PR, like I think paying for press, I feel, then doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Maybe because I worked as a journalist, and I feel like if someone would have to pay me to write a story, I wouldn't feel comfortable with it, about something. So, that comes under advertisement then. So you just create an ad. I don't know. For me, it's like a different, I look at it in a more, I'm very critical of it. But we also lay our own rules. Like, we have relationships with stylists who are lovely. India has some of like the world's best sort of stylists. I feel they style most of these celebrities really well, and we work with them closely. So if there's a new collection, we ask them, like, if someone's on the red carpet, like Shobita Dulipala's look for the Monkey Man premiere, I really liked it. She wore our pieces, she wore our studs and our cuffs. She did a full chrome, like a silver look. That look was amazing. And I was just like, we work closely with the stylist. Sometimes we make sure that, if they need support from us and our team, we're there. We understand it's really busy to put a look together, like especially if you're traveling to different countries. So we're always sort of there to help with the styling of anything as well. So it's pretty much been organic. We have like just organic, normal relationships with them, the managers and stylists, and they're comfortable to reach out to us if they need anything. But luckily, celebrities have purchased from us. And that's something we're really proud of. Like, we feel like we are doing something right there.
Yeah.
And I hope it's not just like a phase and it goes on and on.
I think you have proven that it isn't just a phase, because you've been around for a number of years. And I also think, like, the day and age that we're in, there's so much information out there, right? And I think it almost makes it seem very easy and very quick. And we talk about this a lot, don't we? All the time now. But I think the perseverance is always forgotten about, where being around for so long, having tried different things, having realized over the course of the time that you needed to just focus on your website and your own Instagram page and get the word of mouth out there. I think that's so powerful because it sounds like, you've had a few people in the public space wearing your stuff, and that's naturally probably given you more exposure because people like working with you. So maybe that's the thing to do, right? Is like just to make people feel like they want to purchase from you again and again because they like the brand and they resonate with the brand, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the most important things for us, like for me too. It's like jewelry brands traditionally look like a space where you go to either buy jewelry for an occasion or you go to a luxury brand, like, and it all looks like, for me, I feel like it should look like, I mean, I compare ourselves a lot to I tell my team that if you want inspiration and you're feeling, look at A24 Productions, the guys who've made Euphoria. I'm just like, it just looks like an interest. Like, they have a merchandise section on their website and I've purchased books from them. Like, I would buy anything that they'd like come out with,
Yeah.
And I feel like I want Lune to be that. I don't want it to be a place where it's like not inspiring for people. I want it to be an inspiring place where we kind of we're not just innovating material wise and jewelry wise, but we are also like doing things that are like inspiring and interesting for people who are going to take, like, our store in Bandra is literally in the little lanes of this village in Bandra, like called Chimbai village. And if people are going to take time out to come all the way to that lane and spend time at our store from their busy lives in Bombay, I think we owe it to them. Like, we have to give them more than just like have, of course, beautiful collections, but I think it has to be an experience. And I don't take that lightly. Like, if you're going to spend 10 minutes on my website when you can be anywhere else, I value that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm supposed to be my creative best. And I enjoy doing that as well. So I feel like I'm my own customer.
Me too. It's the best way to be because you give yourself feedback and you're like, yeah, that was shit.
Yeah.
You improve on that one.
Yeah. I think it has to be exciting for yourself, especially if it's an independent label and you don't have an investor. I think it's the right thing to do.
Speaking of finances, actually, because we've not yet touched on that, and that tends to be the biggest fear people have when they're starting their own thing or going full time with something, right? And like, I wanted to ask you, now that you've mentioned that there weren't really investors involved, was it a case of like almost putting in your savings and trying to be as economical as possible starting out, and then slowly growing the profitability over time, or like as much as you'd be willing to share about that financial aspect of your journey?
For me, I think most of my business lessons have come from my own family. Like, I've come from a family of like restaurateurs. So my great grandfather had a couple of hotels. My grandfather did. They've made a lot of mistakes too, and I've learned from them. So I would ask my mom questions all the time. Like, how much did you, like, my mom had a store in Goa for a very long time. I was like, how much did you make in every day? Like, what was your goal for the day? And this is without marketing or anything, right? Like, at a time where there was no Instagram or social media. And she'd be like, no, if you make X amount every day. And I'm like, that seems very little and achievable, like for us, because we have social media.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I didn't go to her earlier, because what we do is, I feel like today when you go on the internet and then you automatically read these stories where people are getting they raise funds of like everything's above like 1 million and more, right? And you're just like, how are you going to get your first 2 million? But no, you can make that, if you have a goal. Like, if you work, I feel like raising funds is secondary. Making your business work and seeing it firsthand, I feel, will give you more confidence then. So I just always wanted it to be independent because I saw how much freedom my mom had in her business, and she lived a pretty decent life that way. She had the freedom to buy her own home, raise her kids really well. And I feel like for me, my mom's been my biggest inspiration. Like, if I didn't have that perspective of how you could run a business from her, I would probably also feel the need, or that sort of, you know, like feeling that I need funds from external places. But I feel like I wanted it to be independent for a very long time. I still do. We're open to it now, but not really still. I mean, we keep talking to people. People are interested in investing, but we are just like, why can't you just then go to a bank if you want extra money? Right? But if it's sort of a profitable, touch wood, a profitable business, and it really depends on what your goals are as a human being. As a business owner, I had an Etsy store, right?
Really?
I started with an Etsy store.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to make as much as my editor made. So then suddenly getting to a place where my editor probably is making, and then a little more, and then a little more. And then I feel as a business person, there's no limit. Someone's always doing better. And I feel that's not the reason why I started the brand, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why we want to keep it as independent, because we can do whatever we want to. Like the team, we started a book club. I don't know if I could ever talk to an investor and be like, hey, we have this idea. We want to start a book club and we don't monetize.
Like, how is that profitable again?
Yeah. So I think we can do these things, just for the fun of it. And because we like it, we like reading books. So why not start a book club?
It's interesting because that actually does add to your brand. It adds to the story and it adds to the feeling of why customers would A, find you and purchase the first thing with you, but B, keep coming back to you, which is the valuable thing of, I guess, the valuable aspect of it. And what you just said is actually not very easily quantifiable when you're looking at, talking to investors. I think the second thing is, from what it sounds to me, you like the autonomy, like to be able to pretty much do whatever the hell you want with it and have fun along the way. And I guess if you had the investors, that would kind of reduce, or you'd have to explain why you were.
Or I'd have things. Another boss, which I don't want to right now.
Mood.
Yeah, I think I just want to do my own thing. I don't want to listen to someone else at this moment, especially when I'm like feeling hyper creative. So that's one of the reasons, maybe.
Maybe the natural next question for me then, Sreesha, is how much do you think luck has played a part in all of this?
I once had an intern that asked me that question as well. She came into work and she's like, who are these, like, how are these celebrity managers in your house? Because that's when I had I could hire an intern at that point, and the manager, the stylist would walk in and out of the house, like a stylist from a lot of magazines like Elle, Vogue, Harper's, and she's like, "How do you know these guys? Like, how are they here? And how am I meeting them? And I'm just like, I don't know. They've probably
they just found me.
They just found me on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think I started Lune at a time where in 2012, where there were fewer brands on Instagram. I feel like also maybe luck could play a part in it, because I don't feel like I work very hard. Even though my mom's like, my mom always tells me that she's worked harder. So she's like, you guys don't work that much, but somehow things just like, because of social media, and we didn't have that opportunity, so we always have these conversations. And also, like, we compared the teams in Goa and Bombay, and like how people work in Goa and in Bombay and everywhere else. And I guess this whole thing of like, we can work out of anywhere. Like, I can design out of any country, or create content out of any country, is something that I feel that I'm grateful for that as well, because maybe I couldn't have done that if I had started a business in the 80s. I'm not sure. We have social media, but maybe luck does play a part. I don't know. It really depends on how curious you are. And I feel like I was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that too. I'm everywhere.
Yeah. And I feel like that could have been a problem, but I feel like I worked in journalism, so I used to be at Fashion Week wearing my jewelry. I've made a few friends there. I have friends from philosophy, so completely academics. I have friends from everywhere, like journalism, academics, fashion. I come here, I meet friends from Goa or like in other places who've moved here. So I feel like I'm so glad I've been able to merge all of my interests in this brand and create something really unique for everyone. But yeah, I guess if you just start, I feel like I often complain about the fact that the brands never won an award. or, or like, I'm just like, when am I ever going to win an award? And my friends are like, you have to pay for it. And I'm like, no, we do get emails where we are asked to pay for awards. And I'm like, that's never going to happen. But that's always going to be a thing. Like, so yeah, I don't know if we are completely lucky, but like, at least I get to do what I like to do.
Yeah, I think the system to an extent is rigged, right? We all know that money does get you places, but the places you've reached through that organic growth is just so remarkable. And I really hope that like anyone who's listening who might be going through a bit of a rough patch with something they're trying to do, like just gets that inspiration back. I feel like I'm getting that inspiration back as well a little bit.
I'm so glad.
I wanted to ask you, actually, I don't know if you've ever answered this publicly, but why Lune? Like what is the significance of Lune or moon in your life?
I had to just quickly find a name for the brand because I had an order off Instagram when I Instagrammed my first necklace that I'd made. I was living in Birmingham at that time, and someone through a hashtag from New York found me, and she was like, how can I buy this? So I was like, I need a name for this because I had Instagrammed it from my own username. And I would keep looking up like names for the brand, and Lune kept coming up, and I always liked the way it looked. The moon, of course, has a great significance, and I'm quite into astrology as well. So I'm Cancerian; it's ruled by the moon, and it just felt like a natural thing to have, like a name to have for a hobby business. But yeah, I mean, here we are. It's like a proper, sometimes I see it on our store board and I'm just like, wow, I picked that name when I was 24.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm 36 now. Yeah. And I look at it and I'm just like, I'm so glad I made that decision because it could have been anything, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
If you were to scrap everything today, Instagram gets deleted, your shop is no longer there, and you were to start all over again from scratch, what would you do the same and what would you do differently?
I love this question. I mean, I think I would still have a brand like Lune. I would still make jewelry because I love it so much. But I think things would have moved a little faster. I think I could have, if I had more confidence in myself, you know? If I had to restart again, I'd restart with great confidence instead of wasting my time doubting myself. I think I wasted a lot of time doubting myself and thinking that, will this work? Will anyone buy this? You know, but all of our collections are permanent collections. We've barely discontinued any design. I remember while taking a risk while making the Crater collection, which is our most viral collection, this is what Alia Bhatt wears. It was such a big risk because I was making bangles that looked like crinkled metal and I wanted it to be like stacked together. And when I was working with my artisans, they were just like, what is this? Who's going to wear this? And I'm just like, let's just do it. It looks beautiful. I can visualize an image, like a model wearing it. I decided the look for it, you know, and I just went with it. I was just like, even if someone buys like one bangle, at least I have this beautiful look that I was planning on photographing. And I sometimes look at that, and this collection for us is a bestseller. And I'm just like, why was I so frightened? And why did I take so long? You know, just I feel that's something that anyone who's starting afresh or starting something new, I just feel like just look inward. And I think like if you're starting a business, you've had it. Even if you think of starting a business, you have it in you, I feel. Otherwise you wouldn't think about it. I feel like if you have it in you, you should just go for it and go ahead with, of course, like not overconfidence, but just be well researched and be confident. I would just start over. I would start like that, like with confidence.
And I guess the key is that there are certain things that nobody can take away from you. Like they could take away the physical stuff, but like the confidence you've built, again, like the evidence you've collected of what's worked, what hasn't worked, how well your gut instinct has served you. I think those things no one will be able to really take. You'll just be building on that.
And your voice. Everyone's voice is so unique.
True.
I mean, I wish I could believe in that. Like my artistic expression is just unique to me. There's only like, I don't have to look anywhere else. Like I have all this conditioning from my childhood years, the things that I was curious to read or make or see, or the places I've been to, the things I've studied, have all eventually it informs you as a creative. And once you get to that place, I think you just do you. Like you don't look at validation even, So I feel like that's very important. Just trusting in yourself and your process, especially as a creative. I think that's the most important thing, because we live in a day and age where I just sometimes feel like all brands look like the same sometimes. Like if I walk on the high street, even like in the UK, I like doing these little trips to Japan, UK, just to check if sometimes I'm just like, okay, what are others doing? Like, of course, you see everything on Instagram, but sometimes it's nice to feel and touch things and see things. And I'm like, we have something special. It feels nice. Like, that, I mean, we can all coexist together, but at least we're creating our own voice, and it doesn't look like any other jewelry brand. And it's like a unique voice. And that's very interesting for me.
I think it explains why you have reached the point you have. It's because you've kind of stayed true to that voice that you've got, and that's really important. And I think I've also personally realized that, like, over the years, that my voice has value, and I think each one of us does hold value in the voice that we have, and we sadly don't believe in it enough because there are too many factors and influences externally trying to drown out that voice and make us kind of almost like minions of each other.
And also you have to be respectful of that voice. I don't take that voice for granted. Even more so now in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of work to make sure that, like, I mean, I hope, like, sometimes I'm just like, I hope people like this collection and buy it. Sometimes I'm like, why haven't people purchased enough of this series, But I mean, everything doesn't have to work all the time, but it's a lot of hard work. Like running a business is a lot of work, and you have to enjoy the boring bits. It's not like, hey, like for me, every day is a new day. I forget about everything that I do like yesterday, which is great sometimes. Like I start afresh. I'm like, okay, let's work on this new thing.
Last couple of questions from me. One, what's actually coming up next for Lune? Like, do you have any longer term aspirations, such as expanding globally? Obviously, you're traveling a lot. Is that an aspiration for you? And if not, then what is it?
I mean, I'm just really excited to maintain the where we are right now. Like we are at a good place, and I want to maintain that for a long, long time. By that I mean like the collections that we are coming up with, our stores. We want to definitely like open more stores in India. I definitely want to travel more because I feel like it feels like I haven't traveled enough ever since Lune started to grow. And because it's so fulfilling that I don't leave. So I've had to actually force myself to leave. And I thought that the UK is the right place. Again, because I was at a different place mentally when I was here with the brand when it just started. So it's just revisiting. It's empowering to see how far we've come. It's almost like, oh my God, I was such a child when I started it. And now I'm at a place where I can kind of like decide what I want to do with it, and with some confidence, in the UK. And the UK is always a special place for me. I feel like the London creative scene is like always inspiring. Everyone's so sweet. There's so much to do that I'm just like, okay, let's see what to do first. Definitely a few like collaborations with people in London, and New York maybe. But I feel like the idea, we are really excited about our collections. Our newer collections are going to be even more interesting, I feel, because we have an aspect of research, and it's just fun what we're trying to do right now with, like, we have this section called Lune Explores Type, which is like essentially like a typography. We explore typography and script in India. So we're going to come up with collections, release letters from India, basically different scripts from different states.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting for us. So that's like quite academic, and there's a lot of research. So quite excited about our winter collection. And yeah, I mean, just the same old, just, I guess, like, how do we express ourselves? How do we put out the collections in interesting ways and dabble with graphic design a little bit? So we have a lot of fun that way. And we have so much more customization options now than ever before with our brand. Like, you can pick a piece and have that made in like gold, silver, or gunmetal, which is something that's not very easy to find. We have like, you can customize the lengths of chains, the ring sizes. We can make it an 18 karat gold, sterling silver, or brass. So we have these options laid out. And I feel like if you're coming into the store, we are just like, we have something for you. Like, we can work with you to make something possible in that sense. So that requires a lot of patience, a lot of like training processes. And I feel like we've worked on that for so long that now it's sort of like, that's why I want to kind of see how it's going to work for a few years. Because that's like an extra thing that we want to provide for our customers, which is also something that's inspired from the UK. Like, that little sort of custom bespoke thing that you actually don't see in high street stores. I don't call myself a high street brand. It's an independent brand. And I think we need to offer these services,
Definitely. Yeah, definitely, if you have the power to be able to do that and set your process up to do that.
Yeah.
Last question. It makes me very sad because I've been loving everything that we've been talking.
I hope I've not been going like,
oh my God, no. I feel like personally so inspired to just keep doing what I'm doing based on what you're talking about. But last question for you, Sreesha, is what do you have strong game in?
I think my artistic expression, and I get this sort of integrity also from where I've been raised, like Goa, because it's such a small state. I don't know if I've told this to you earlier, but Goa is such a small state that this is just an observation, like a journalist, would observe something like that. But I feel like growing up in Goa, I realized that people only went to people who were really good at their job. You couldn't really be average at your job because the word would get around. Like, if you were a doctor, you had to be a good doctor. Otherwise, people won't come to you. Or if you were a bad doctor, people would know about it soon. So I think I have that in me somewhere because I grew up in that environment where everybody had to put their A game on, or you wouldn't be good at your business. So I feel like, for me, just being very true to the business side of things and the way we make our jewelry I feel like that's where I feel my strong game. Yeah. I feel just making really good quality product that's unique and that's interesting and exciting is my strong game. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. And it's been such a privilege to talk to you so openly. So thank you for sharing so candidly about your journey and just more about Lune and what it stands for. I really hope more people find out about your brand. Do you ship internationally?
Yeah, we do. We
Okay.
ship worldwide.
Okay, amazing. So I'll share kind of links to the brand and everything. And yeah, I wish you all of the success. I hope you keep creating, keep exploring and having fun with it, and never feel tied down by any kind of, external factor. And I hope you have full creative autonomy forever.
Thank you. Come to our stores in Goa
I would
and
love
Bombay.
to. I will definitely pop by. I'll hold you to that one. Thank you,
Thank
Sreesha. Hi, me again. Just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to this episode of Brown Game Strong. I hope you enjoyed it and got something useful out of it. If you'd like to stick around, then please hit subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can click follow to get updated on all of the latest episodes. It helps me immensely in continuing to bring you more exciting guests and interesting stories so that we can continue to learn about all the awesome work that's happening in our community. Thank you for your support. It never goes unnoticed, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.